Reading culture among youth has seen significant shifts in recent years, influenced by rapid technological advancement, changing educational system, and evolving social trends. Traditionally, reading has been considered a cornerstone of personal development, critical thinking, and academic success. However, with the rise of digital media and instant access to information, many youths are engaging less with books and more with online content, social media, and multimedia platforms. Where do youths connect? Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on another interesting episode. I am Fatima Ahmed Musa, and this is Youth Connect. Now, before you get to meet my guest, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, the discussion would commence. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us on Youth Connect. Now, joining me in the studio is Shehu Fatiu Abba. He is an architect. Thank you so much, Shehu, for joining.
Thank you very much.
And then we have the retired Honorable Samuel Peter Aye, Deputy Speaker, Nigerian Youth Parliament, 5th session. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, you heard the topic that we're discussing. We're talking about reading culture and why it is sort of fading, I would say, because of so many reasons. And it has become an alarming topic of discussion. What would you say reading culture is to you?
Well, simply put, reading culture for me would be the attitude or the habits that people hold towards reading, how they engage books and literary materials. Simply put, for me, that's reading culture.
How about you, Shehu?
Basically, reading culture is the consumption of knowledge to me through literal media, that means textbooks, newspapers, and but that has been evolving over time with the advent of technology, as you said.
But you know, it's a issue that we need to look into, right? So would you say this has affected youth in some ways?
Yes, of course it has, because like you rightly mentioned, not many young people engage reading books anymore, these hard copy books, because of the advent of technology. It has made a lot of things easier, like having books in e-forms. Like people can just go online and read e-books without necessarily picking up a hard copy book to read. Well, that in itself has reduced the rate at which young people, especially, engage in reading books, hard copy books. And in a way, it has also made a lot of people not to be interested in reading, because for them they think it is burdensome to pick books and then begin to go through them. Some people have come up with excuses that reading hard copy books are burdensome in the sense that they have to keep their eyes focused, they have to stay put in a particular place for a period of time to be able to read. That has affected reading culture in a way, but in all, I think we should be able to strike a balance with the advent of technology and the advent of e-books and social medias and all of that. We need to strike a balance, because there comes a time that we'll be needing to consume knowledge from hard copy books.
So, Shehu, would you say the advent of social media has sort of made the youth to become lazy, like Honorable Samuel just mentioned, because a lot of them now don't want to read?
I think it doesn't begin from the social media inclusion in our society. It has long been part of our systems, from the technology in television. People have been so focused on looking into screens and grabbing information. For someone like me, I prefer to accumulate knowledge, not necessarily through reading. I do read, but not through textbooks. So that sense of engagement in acquiring knowledge has been through other forms of media. And the whole concept of having literal texts to read in the cases of papers and books are somewhat, as I mentioned, archaic. And number one, they're consuming in the sense of you have to produce them, and the capital required to do that is something that should be discussed honestly. than books again. So I think we should move on from the whole concept of writing and reading on papers. That is my own understanding.
Okay, so all right. So let me ask you, this may be personal. How often do you read books, and what kind of genres of books do you prefer online or the physical hard books?
Well, for me personally, I think it's a 50-50 thing. I love to read online, like e-books, and I also love to read hard copy books because reading online sometimes could be distracting because you could be online reading and all of a sudden something pops up, and if you're not disciplined enough, you leave what you were reading or what you were studying and begin to go through something else. So for me, that's why I said it has to be a 50-50 thing. I enjoy reading, gaining knowledge from materials online, and I also at the same time enjoy reading literal books, literal hard copy books, because let's say like for materials that are hard copy, if something that I'm reading strikes a chord in my mind, I could easily pick a pen or something and then maybe just underline or take note of what it is. But sometimes it is not always easy to do that while reading online. So I think for me, it's a 50-50 thing. Most times when I read hard copy books, I do that maybe late at night when I'm settled.
Yeah.
Because while I'm up and going during the day, it makes it somewhat difficult for me to sit down in a particular place and pick up a book to read. But when I'm less busy in the evening or at nights, I can always go through hard copy books.
Okay. Sure, would you say, the rise of social media and digital entertainment has affected youths from, this reading habit that we're talking about?
I wouldn't say it has affected, it has impacted, because people can now get their information through digital media. Digital media in the sense that for a company like Daily Trust now, they have invested in the newspaper for a very long time, and they are moving now online as well. So they are gathering more customer base, and in that sense, it is a shift towards the next form of education or knowledge acquiring.
Okay, so in your own, let me say, if you can advise young people on how to adapt reading habits, what would you say are the key points they need to take?
Well, I think I would say, first of all, because of our individual differences, young people especially should maybe take a look at themselves and see what works for them. Because there are people who would make a lot out of reading literal books, like hard copy books, and then there are those who would actually make more sense reading materials online. So whatever works for them and is actually working, not that because people are doing it or somebody is saying somewhere that this is what we should be doing. Whatever works for you, and then it helps you acquire the knowledge that you need to acquire, I think it's fine. Whether it's online or it's literal books.
Okay, so I mean, I've seen a lot of people reading books when they are traveling inside the car or even on their e-books and what have you. But how about those that want to make it a career and yet they don't like to read? What would you say about that, Shio?
Reading as a career?
Writing, for example.
They have to adapt to the trend. That's what I can say. They just have to adapt to the trend, because writing books now and authors having the fan base that they need requires them to have signings and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's like a cult following, so they should keep on with that if that's what they actually want. But as a career, writing honestly is a good career, and it helps with the imagination and thought processes of a lot of people. But why can't that be through digital medium? For example, someone like me, I'm not totally against writing, but I'm not a fan. I don't subscribe to in fictional books. I more or less adapt myself to personal and self-growth books. And while I was in school, we were giving text as in handouts to go and prepare for exams. I would literally go to the cafes and have my hard copies converted into soft copies because I could not handle
the papers.
Yes, I could not handle the papers. So I could have a bunch of books on my iPad without having to carry a book.
So, but how can that, you know, affect personal development and success for some of them?
For people who don't
like to read?
Well, it would definitely affect them because I don't see how somebody would want to develop personally and not want to read, because that's sort of like one of the best ways to acquire knowledge and to get informed. So if one wants to really develop himself or herself, then it is just necessary that the person finds a way to adapt to reading, whether they are hard copy books or you're reading online. But there's no way practically that one would want to develop himself and not want to read. So that would be like trying to arrive at a destination without taking the journey. So it is very difficult. So I would just advise that if you must develop yourself, then you will have to read what other people have written, whether in hard copy form or in soft copy, as he has said. Because the truth is, knowledge is shared. Because there are experiences that people may have had, and in order for them to be able to pass on these experiences, they have to write. Now, writing it this time around will now depend on whichever medium they so choose to use, whether to put it in a hard copy form or to make it an e-form that people can access online.
So how often do you find time to read, Joe? Maybe, you know, with regards to the distractions that comes with technology, social media, and other activities.
Reading in what form?
How often do you find time to read?
I read every day.
Every day?
Yes. On Twitter.
On Twitter? And exactly. Now that's entertaining, right?
Yes, it's not the entertainment. It's the other part of reading that people don't seem to or have conveniently left out is the part that books are being written by people with biases. So you could be misinformed by reading. So the better part of that argument, I would say, is to have the sense or have the ideas that you believe what you believe in, and filter out the misinformation in those in that sense.
Okay, so this is going to be a general question to the both of you. What authors or what kind of, you know, books or authors have inspired you when it comes to reading or adapting reading habits?
Well, okay, I would say,
because it could be entertainment for some. If it's fun, you see a lot of people may read.
So for me, apart from books or books authored by maybe teachers, lecturers that I had to read in school, so outside that, I find myself reading more of self-development and capacity building literatures from people who have had experiences, especially in leadership and governance for someone like
politicians
me, because of the interest that I have. So I often find myself reading books on leadership, people who have written from their own perspective, like you said, and their own biases, what leadership is to them, and the opportunities they've had to handle one position or the other and how they fared in it, and then maybe some recommendations that they give. So, but for me, generally, I enjoy reading books authored by political leaders of thoughts, and
what have you. Shehu, so at what point do you think we should start, you know, talking about possibly maybe helping youth to understand, or maybe even school children now, to maybe, you know, talk about it more or put them through, like teachers? Do you think they are doing their best at this point? Because even the young ones, they hardly read. They're always on their phones.
Honestly, about schools, I've been really surprised as to how schools have moved from what schools used to be from nowadays, because I've not been involved in schools. But the kids that have the right sense of wanting to actually, they tend to do read, and they don't shy away from that activity, because at times, or most of the times, it's like a hobby to them, not a capacity building avenue or anything, yet it helps them in situations of having wilder imaginations, because they've had experiences through their reading activities. So kids should read, and it's an avenue for them to grow.
All right, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this discussion. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for joining us again on Youth Connect, coming to you from Trust TV here in Abuja. Yeah, so before we went on the break, we're having this beautiful conversation and talking about teachers. So, Samuel, how about parents? Because we can't just talk about teachers and not talk about parents. Do you think parents should also take it seriously, in indulging their children when it comes to, helping them push for reading, because it has a way of helping with career development, like we talked about?
It is very, very necessary. It's very important. In fact, it cannot be overemphasized, because the truth is that for children, they learn from what they see. So you can imagine what it will do to a child that at some point in time, the child finds you as a parent, as a mother, as a father reading. He has a way of encouraging the child to want to do the same thing that he has seen his parents do. So I think parents should deliberately encourage their children to read, and even go further to engage in reading themselves and also reading with the children. It helps them a lot, because the parents that we have today are not really encouraging children to read, in the sense that they would prefer to get an iPad for the child, get a phone, put a cartoon,
and then they get addicted to it.
Put a cartoon or something to distract the children from maybe wanting their attention, and they call disturbance. So instead of always putting cartoons for them to watch, we can introduce them to reading virtually. Like they can read from their iPads, from their phones. If you don't want to encourage them to read hard copy books, it shouldn't be cartoon always, and always, because parents have a lot. The maximum time they spend in school is maybe 5 hours, 5-6 hours. That's if it's up to that amount of time. And then the rest of the day they spend at home with their parents. So I think parents have a lot to do in encouraging their children to read. And also they could motivate the children to read by maybe giving them some sort of incentives. Say, okay, we have this novel we want to read. Whoever is able to read it in so space of time has this reward. So it encourages young people to read, and thereby building their capacities.
But sure, we've seen a lot of young people dropping out of school because they don't want to engage in school. Like they believe they can't, this certificate is not what they need to make it. I mean, you heard when I talked about content, for those that want to make content online. How do we make them understand that reading can actually, enhance their critical thinking and add to their success?
Okay. School has been an avenue for formal education. People have been misconstruing it for knowledge, not knowledge per se, just certification. And certification in this manner would help people get into places that the lack of the certification wouldn't allow them to. So people have been opting out of schools because they have seen other people in other industries making it without that certificate. And the truth of the matter is, as much as people would like to read and grow their own knowledge, the question now boils down to skills, because a lot of institutions and professions now don't actually, you could have all the certifications that you claim to have on your CV and whatnot, but can you really apply what you have learned? And what you've learned is not on certificates, not on paper, it's what is in your head.
Yeah, so, but literature, I mean, in school we've seen, our lecturers teaching us literature in the university, and a lot of people don't want to, venture into that, but at the same time, they're forgetting that some of these novels that we've read actually has enhanced our creative minds.
Of course.
So how can you influence or, put a grown person that doesn't want to or doesn't enjoy reading to pick up?
Well, for someone who's already grown, I think there is little that somebody else can do to encourage them to read. I think they will now have to pick up the challenge by themselves, maybe looking at the kind of things they see around them and how people relate with them to take up that challenge to want to read. Like you said, reading for people who no longer believe in school, especially for young people, you hear things like school na scam.
I wanted to say that.
And it's because the curriculum does not really meet the needs of today. So it's more like you're teaching students of this generation things that are archaic, things that have lost touch with the current reality. So a lot of people cannot relate with them, and then they tend to say school is scam. So, but the truth is that school is not scam. Even for people who eventually venture into content creation and all of that, you could easily note the difference between those who are well schooled and those who are not. Let me give you an example. There is this lawyer Wasabi, so this tall, slim guy.
Wasabi.
Yes, Lai Wasabi. He's a content creator, but if you look at his content, his content is based on knowledge, and it's really, really interesting. And it's not like most of the contents we see up and down with nothing to really pick from them, just exposing people's bodies and all of that. But for him, because of knowledge, because of his ability to have gone through school and allow the school to go through him too, he is able to bring up content that are educational and then can help one relate with the things that are really happening around us. So it's really important. Lastly, let me say that I don't know how true it is, but somebody said somebody was shouting school is scam, and he was arrested by the police, and he was asked to write a statement along with other people, and he was arrested for staying out late at night, and the others were arrested for different crimes. And because he could not read, he had to copy what the other person had written, and it was someone who had been caught for murder. So I don't know how true that is, but that story is out there. So to just say that reading is very important, and that if we want to really make meaning as young people today, we must engage in reading, whether they are hard copy books or we prefer to read e-books, whichever. We just have to.
But Shehu, do you think maybe joining what's it called? Maybe participating in book clubs and reading groups can help enhance some of these youths' reading habits? Do you think that is possible?
That is really possible. The advancement of reading can be propagated by having such institutions to be part of, but how available are they? You have to find people with your mindset. You have the same mindset. You have the same genres of same books.
Just like for the poets that have their own clubs and all that.
You would have. But how often do they form? How often do you expose yourself to such situations? It's hard to come by because people are diverging from the art or the project we know as reading now. So I think that. But
let me ask this again, Samuel, in a few seconds. For parents that don't know how to read, how can they help their children? Because it's not all about bringing tutors to the house to teach them. Or I mean, we've seen a lot of things happening when it comes to that. So how can we, push these youth to maybe, like he said, form a group where they can actually enhance reading habits, and then maybe that will help with their critical thinking and creativity as well, especially for those that want to venture into content creation.
Okay, well, for parents who do not know how to read, I think having this kind of small groups would actually help, and then try to show the children that yes, we may not have had the opportunity to go to school and then learn how to read and write. So, but then I would want to learn from you as my child who is in school. So that in itself would be a sort of
Also
motivation to the children to want to read, and then coming up with small groups in the neighborhood of children of age grade. Say, okay, maybe in this neighborhood we have about, let's say, 20 children who are in junior secondary school, for instance. You say, okay, they can bring them together as parents to say, okay, I may not be able to read and write to teach my child, so but if we have this group and they come to read together, it will really help them.
I mean, it's actually nice having the both of you. Thank you so much for your insight and contribution. Thank you so much, Samuel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Phil, for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is the much we have for you today on Youth Connect. Do join us again next week for another interesting episode. Just know that knowledge is power, and you can't know it all, but you have to try. I am Fatima Ahmed Musa. Bye for now.